We're in the year of 2024 that when it comes to the nation of Mexico, of course, the nation is well known for this unique culture and also the hospitality among the citizens. Remember the days that when we travel to the country, it's not just about the sightseeing, it's really about what we called the cross-cultural communications, and particularly regarding the younger generations. But meanwhile, if you follow the news closely, that this nation recently just wrapped up quickly what we called a political revolution. A brand new, what we say, the first female president was elected. Now, this is such a big deal, and given the fact that this has been the biggest historical moment that the nation has been waiting for. Now, what do we know about the first female president? And what about the crime rate? And also, what about this economic instability for the country? Because at this moment, it's rather crucial to understand that through the legitimate election, it's not just about putting your name on the ballot. It's not just about placing the person in the house. It's actually gaining the trust among the voters and also help the voters to understand that the future of the country is also at stake. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to invite our distinguished speaker, who is Alexandra Mendora. Again, Ms. Mendora, she's a general director of Yubiling Consulting, and her experience covers Mexican local government policy and the public project management. Alejandra, and welcome to The Missing Piece.
Hi, Will. It's a pleasure to be here and to dialogue with your audience.
Well, Alejandra, I want to get started. Again, as we mentioned before, this is one of the major elections for the nation of Mexico. Again, this is the first time that the president or the future president is going to be a woman. Now, from your perspective, help us with better understanding. What do we know about Claudia Sheinbaum and why was this election so significant for the nation?
Thank you so much, Will. This election is actually iconic. Of course, you cannot say yet that this is an historical moment for Mexico, being the fact that Mexico has long history. We had fought foreign invaders and we had civil wars in our country. We have gone through several reforms, so this may be one important moment to remember in history. So for your audience, and especially given the fact that we discussed before, the little knowledge there is out there about Mexican politics, let me please simplify it for everybody here and using the metaphor of a hot pot. Imagine that in the 1980s, Mexico politics shook. It went through a big crisis. So imagine that you have a dinner already served, and all of a sudden someone pulls the arm over the table and throws everything away. So that was the impact of the crisis in the 1980s. So this big arm put in front of the table a big pot. So we start making a new hot pot. But what happened is that, of course, we had new ingredients coming in. The hope for a more open regime, political regime. Remember that we come from a soft authoritarian regime. And also the fresh ingredients of a more open economy. So this is a time where Mexico starts to give way to a more privatized economy, and the government slowly withdraws from the public policy. So in this hot pot, also it's important to mention that we didn't get rid of certain ingredients, and that one is the soup, the political culture of Mexico. So when we, with high hopes, threw in all the ingredients, because we did not have the perfect recipe for hot pot, of course the less starchy veggies started to float. So we pick the first lettuce. And what happened is that Mexico the government decided to allow certain important institutions to be autonomous. Later, some other ingredients, which is very important, the change of the political party governing. But some more starchy ingredients have been slowly cooking during the past 25 years that have resulted in the election, in the victory of not only the first Mexican woman as president of Mexico, but also a PhD, a doctorate. It's of great transcendence, this fact. Now, you would say the important information that is out there about Mexican elections are its figures. The amount of people that were able to cast the votes is unprecedented. We had almost 100 million people in this position. Mexico's population is 130 almost million people. So 100 of people had the chance to vote. In previous occasions, the abstentionist was the biggest winner. So the past elections, we have 40% of participation in each national elections. This year elections, there were 60% of the voters that turned to the ballots. This is super important. The other important factor is the fact that almost 30% of people that were able to cast the vote were the young generation. So that means it's people that are living between the ages of 18 to 29 years old. So if you see the history, so it's the people that were born right after this new hot pot was made. So for them, it's obvious to have different parties contending for power. When I was born, there were many parties, but the real possibilities of a different party governing were almost none. And this was kept by all corrupt means, including violence. So for the young generation, having an election that goes smoothly is historical for Mexico.
Well, let's continue our conversation. We know that for every single election, particularly for the nation of Mexico, economy topped the agenda. I mean, again, it's not just about the economic cycles and also this economic agenda for the nation of Mexico, but looking at the world around, the economy is so critical at this moment. And I want to ask you, the next question is, how would you describe the current economic climate in this country today? And again, Alejandra, you mentioned about the younger generations. What specific economic interest that motivated the younger generations to participate in this election? How would you say to that?
This is very important because, as we know, economy is a tectonic plate that moves societies, political regimes, and culture. So Mexican economy is going through a very difficult period at this moment. Most of the people live within the range of poverty, of certain range of poverty. In the last decades, we have had constant numbers that around 20 to 30% of people, they live in very precarious situations. So having that and having a population that is mainly young, so what you have is a lost opportunity. Because in one hand, you have all these young force really trying to get a job. But on the other hand, you have very few possibilities. And especially in a country where sometimes the educational opportunities are scarce. So the previous government, the Andrés Manuel López Obrador government, actually entered into the political arena with this proposal. And his campaign logo was make the poor people the priority. Make them the first in the nation's priorities. And so he contested in 2006, 2012, and then again in 2018. It's until this third time that he succeeded being elected president, not because of he did not have the favor of the electorate, So there's many people that were backing his project. The fact is that there were certain very weird, obscure circumstances that derailed his campaign and turned out to be there was a question in the results. So he didn't give up. Finally, he got the election. So he put forward a program, very ambitious program. So that scared half of the population in Mexico, because it is true that Mexico's is an industrial powerhouse. So that means that they are powerful entrepreneurs and business people, that they really get a lot of benefit from having an open economy, from keeping their interests protected, interests that have been set in place for many decades. So a president that begins a discourse turning to the left, the discourse is turning to the left, makes everybody very nervous. As a matter of fact, and as we have seen in the reality, Andrés Manuel López Obrador's government program and policies have rather been more conservative. To give you an example, one key factor to differentiate a socialist economy from one that is more liberal is the respect of autonomous institutions that guide critical macroeconomic indicators. So the Bank of Mexico has this faculty of independently from the executive power to decide the macroeconomic policy. So Andrés Manuel couldn't change that legal fact. And for the tranquility of many people now, Claudia Sheinbaum has been very clear that she's going to maintain that. Andrés Manuel said the same as Trump, that free trade agreements don't bring benefits to everybody. It's more like a small elite get benefit. So everybody was afraid if Andrés Manuel could cancel the free trade agreement, especially with North America. Claudia Sheinbaum was smarter than that. She understands Mexico's interest and geographical situation. So in her first speech last Sunday, she clearly said, in regard to foreign policy, North America is a priority, and keep the benefit of a free trade agreement, especially in the situation where Mexico is an economy that is deeply connected to the world. We have been trading with over 100 countries for the past 30 years. So these have created a whole infrastructure and many industrial zones in Mexico that are working with those factors. So the question is the new president going to swipe everything away and create a new program, a new policy? The answer is clear, no. Particularly because all the investment is moving away from China and into Mexico. And also Mexico, since last year, became the first trade partner for the United States.
Before we talk about the relationship between U.S. and Mexico, I want to read a statement to you, and I want to get your reaction on this. Now, during the campaign trail that Claudia Sheinbaum responded regarding this business investment and also this what we call domestic and foreign relations. And this is what she said, and I quote, that respect business freedom and facilitate with honesty private investment, national and foreign. Now, Alejandra, from your perspective, how should we understand such statement? And also, again, among the voters and also to the audience who watch our show, that we understand that Claudia was the protege of the current president, Mr. Lopez Obrador. I mean, again, how should we understand this type of influence between the future of the president and also the current president when you look at this term called business freedom and also this honesty, private investment. Your thoughts?
This is a great chance for me to explain at two levels something that may be foreign for people that are not Mexican, or they are not constantly observing Mexican political system. So these declarations, you have to understand it in two levels. One is a political structure of Mexico. So we know that it's a free country. There's direct vote. So it's a very open democracy. But day by day has to be built with strong powers. Economic power has its weights and has made it felt for the last 200 years. So doesn't matter how good the ideas are, if they don't match with strong interest, they are not going to see the light of the day. So Andrés Manuel, even when he turned to be, he comes from the left, he understands that he has to govern. And govern it requires dialogue. So Claudia Sheinbaum, being a politician, but also a policy maker, she understands that she has to sit down with all relevant actors. And Mexican economy, given the fact of the regime structure, the actors that are going to push the economy forward is not the government. The government has only a few tokens to play. Most tokens are on the table or on the side of the private sector. The private sector is very diverse. So most of the companies in Mexico are very small, family units almost. But also we have big actors that even play internationally. So Claudia Sheinbaum, the wiser attitude that she may have is to be open to the dialogue. So since the very beginning, she did not want to make enemies for free, as we say in Spanish. So since the very beginning, she is sending this signal in two ways. As I said, first, that she understands the rules of the game, and second, that she's open to cooperate.
Alejandro, I got two more questions before letting you go. Now, let's talk about one of the major concerns within the international community when we talk about Mexico. Number one is the issue related to security and also the crime rate. I mean, again, this is very alarming. I mean, again, statistically speaking, that within a year that, again, if I get the number right, it's 30,000 murder cases happened. I mean, again, for a country that we understand, no country is perfect, first of all. And second, in order to make it better, Claudia has a huge responsibility to respond to the community. So from your perspective, how do you think that she's going to come up with better strategy to deal with the crime rate and also regarding this escalating concerns among the voters? What do you say to that?
Yeah, definitely the security issue in Mexico has been top of the agenda since Vicente Fox was in the trail of the election in 2000. And the insecurity problem in Mexico, the security problem in Mexico is, you can understand it in many ways. One is the fight against the drugs. The second is other kind of crime, for example, the women and children's trade, organ trade, kidnappings, robbery, etc. So we have many levels of insecurity in Mexico. And those have been the cancer of Mexico for the past 25 years. Now, none of the political parties that have governed Mexico, either PRI, PAN, or now Morena, have really nailed it. Why? Because the drug problem in Mexico is transnational. So the biggest cartels, they operate in over 60 countries. And we are, because of geographical reasons, we are right next to the biggest market. And the biggest market, the government has no way to really control the consumers, and is limited to control the consumers. And the consumers are growing and demanding even more. So us being exactly in the middle from producers and consumers, is very difficult to really solve this problem. But Claudia, many people, I think they subestimate her capacity. And I think it's wrong to say that she is just a puppet, as we say, the small finger of Andres Manuel. She's much stronger and much more prepared and intelligent than even her predecessor. And to observe that, you have to see the results that she delivered when she was the governor of one of the biggest metropolis in the world. Mexico City is the size of Shanghai. The same population, even bigger size in territory. And it's not as simple because each district governor or municipal government may be from different parties. So the circumstance that she had to prepare herself for being a president of Mexico is a really good training. So in this context, she gave good results. So she solved or reduced Mexico City crime. So we are really expecting her to escalate her program, her security program, to the rest of the country. So what is her idea? In basically one front, to rescue the people, because they're individuals that are putting their life at risk. Why? Because they don't have other options. So she really believes in this idea that if you had better options, you wouldn't turn to crime to have a living. So she is going to follow. This is a continuity that she's going to have from the president, from Andres Manuel. Continue to provide direct welfare funds to the most poor. At the moment, the beneficiaries of this program are over 25 million Mexicans. Name it: the elder, the child, the mothers, the students. So she's going to continue that. Now, what she cannot change is the fact that the security system in Mexico is already set. So we have a militarized police that has sometimes given more problems than solutions. And also, we have a military sector that is even more powerful than 6 years ago. So it's not easy. She doesn't really have much room for negotiation or action, but at least she has the most convincing program to tackle it.
Alejandra, I want to wrap up our conversation by asking you the last question. Again, this is a historical moment for the nation of Mexico. Of course, again, she's the first female and also the first Jewish female president for the country. Now, you are also a role model as a woman leader overseas. I want to end our conversation by asking you the last question. What does that mean for the younger women today who are strongly interested in enter politics or any other leadership roles? So in other words, Claudia Sheinbaum, do you think that she actually broke the cultural norm, or maybe perhaps this political arena, that to be the first female enter the politics and successfully become the president for this wonderful country? What are your final thoughts?
Thank you, Will. Well, once again, I'm sorry to jump in and a little bit change the narrative, because probably people don't know that much, or Mexico is not covered that much in that regard. Okay, so she is not the first one to raise her hand and say, I want to be the president. Previous to her, we have other 5. So Mexico has a history of feminist fighters in all fronts. And the political arena is just one. So the main critic that we may make to Claudia Sheinbaum is, even though she identifies herself with the left, she has not been vociferous enough to set the feminist agenda for the past 6 years. And she had a position of power to not let Andrés Manuel withdraw from this need. Andrés Manuel was put in the presidential palace due to the feminist movement. And the feminist movement now is really disappointed. And is really disappointed at Claudia. Only in that regard. Claudia is also a environmental fighter. So the previous government, the previous administration, really had some problems in that area. So it's an open question. What is Claudia going to do in those regards? Coming back to your position, it is true. And I'm going to connect Claudia as an example, of course, is iconic. I'm going to connect with what I said at the beginning. 30% of the voters that turned to the election this past Sunday, they were born in a Mexico where it's common to have institutions that support women. It is common to see in the media, in the TV stations, main female roles in important positions. They are used to have deputies and municipal presidents that are females, right? And they are used to see in the ballot women. So again, Claudia Sheinbaum, she's a builder, of course, yeah, but also a beneficiary of the fight that has been made by females. And to support that, I will refer to her speech for this Sunday. She explicitly thanks the females that came before her.
Well, again, this is such an exciting moment for the nation of Mexico. Again, we are very much looking forward to see what Claudia Sheinbaum will do for the country. And of course, as you mentioned before, Alexandra, it's not just about this country alone, it's this collective effort, this international relationship that push forward can enhance the business opportunities and also continue to build the bridges for the whole world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to have Alexandra Mendoza. Again, she's the General Director of Ubiling Consulting. Her experiences cover Mexican local government policy and the public project management. Alexandra, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. We love to have you back on the show as we continue to pay attention, not just about the politics in Mexico, but also the matters around the world. So thank you so much for doing this.